morning and welcome to the Metapod Podcast, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. We're getting close to 120
episodes,
and we just, getting really, really close. This is episode number 115.
Wow.
Sean, I have done that about, I think it's 150 times. Have I missed an episode?
I don't think you have. I know I have. If the only time you might not have been on an episode is like, remember when I did the interview with Zach? Not Zach.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I was in that.
Oh
episode.
yeah. I sent you that footage.
There was some news that did come
That's
out
true.
that was like pretty big news. That was like we should probably like mention this, and then but the majority of it, was that interview. I remember that.
Yeah. So,
but Sean, how is your morning going? We're recording in the morning.
I'm going well. As you can see, I have a cat. So,
which one is this cat?
this is the cat that probably viewers have not seen. This is the kitten. London Fog is her name.
I was gonna say I don't think I've met this one yet.
Her name is London. And she is a little menace, but she is a kitten, so it's to be expected. Isn't that right?
You know
London?
what? I'm a menace too. And so I relate to London.
She likes drinking matcha, so she's competing with me right now for my breakfast drink.
Oh, I gotcha. Sean has his matcha. I have my coffee. We're all ready to go and rocking and rolling in this podcast episode.
But
we
you
got
know
a
what,
lot
Jake,
to talk about today.
I never asked you, how was your weekend?
My weekend was tough. If you can't tell, my voice is like a little strained. So usually like in a weekend, we will have 2 or 3 like home events going on per day. In a weekend in the busiest time of year, we had 4 on Saturday, and that was incredibly stressful because they like all happened at the same time. They were all like noon starts.
Oh my gosh.
It's nice when like some of them are like 11, 1, 3, 5. But no, they were all like, let's just all play at noon.
Oh
and
my God.
we got through it somehow. I don't know how we did it, but I guess that's why I have the job and not somebody else. But it was busy, and Sean had messaged me last night. He was like, hey, can we record tonight? This being on Sunday night. And I'm still in the office. It's like 7 p.m. And I'm like, Sean, I'm going to bed as soon as I get home. Like we got to record Monday morning. And so we are here Monday morning. I am refreshed, bright and early. I'm refreshed. I've got my coffee, well, refreshed as I can be for this. But we're going to bring you a great episode, starting with a great, lovely review. Sean, we got a bunch of wonderful, wonderful YouTube comments. Thank you all who said happy birthday to me. I super, super appreciate it. I love how people loved that, I dropped the bomb on Sean in the last like 3 seconds of the podcast.
Yeah.
Saying about the birthday. But this one is a review on that podcast episode. And so if you want to leave a review yourself, whether it's 5 stars, 1 star, whatever, leave a YouTube comment, drop a Spotify rating, drop an Apple iTunes rating and review. Just let us know how we're doing. Even tweet at us if you want, at MetapodTCG. But this review...
Honestly, I can read the review this week because I know which one it is.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to read it, Sean?
Yeah, it's from Alex Jackson. I'm going to call him Action Jackson.
Action Jackson.
I think it's a TV show. Anyways, just recently got into the Pokemon TCG thanks to my friends, and I love your podcast. Really helping me with building decks, and I like that you include explanations for those that are more beginner level. Bought my first ever booster box last week with Lost Origin and got some great pulls. Keep up the great podcast, 5 stars.
Thank you very much, Alex, for the wonderful review. Hopefully you continue getting good pulls and your gameplay continues to improve and achieve, because you're going to have a lot more competitors, especially when we get talking about the World Championships. I don't know about this year, but in the near future, it is coming, because Sean, our first topic of the day, if you will, the Pokemon Company is officially announced that the Pokemon TCG will be printed in a new language, Simplified Chinese. This is the language in mainland China, which means that the Pokemon TCG is going to be in mainland China, Sean. It's going to be coming to a new region, to a new place. And Sean, you had mentioned this to me before the podcast. You're like, wait, wasn't the Pokemon trading card game already in China? And this is specifically in mainland China, where the majority of people who identify as Chinese, I believe, are. Before Pokemon TCG was launched in traditional Chinese in Hong Kong and Taiwan in October 2019. You may remember like Ultra Shiny GX, that Japanese set. That was part of that like launch and that beginning era over in Hong Kong Taiwan.
I will also say, technically, back in the Dizay, in the WotC era, there were cards printed in, I believe, traditional Chinese as well. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's why I was like, because you can get first edition base set boxes in Chinese.
Oh, you can?
Yes. But I think it's the same thing, Hong Kong and Taiwan, right? So getting super political now, saying it's launching in China. Some in the Chinese government might disagree and saying Taiwan is China. So,
well, I mean, mainland China, that's what I'm saying. It is launching in mainland China. Now the Pokemon TCG is currently printed in Japanese, English, German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Korean, Indonesian, Thai, and traditional Chinese. But Sean, this is awesome. It's going to feature the first the first two Sun and Moon compilation sets. Shoot, where was it? I just saw it.
Sun and Moon and Crossing the Sky is what it says on the article. But
Crossing the Sky. I believe that this is a oh, yes. So it's two sets that are coming in there. I don't know if we know what it's going to compile of as of yet. But we already know the first couple sets. It is confirmed that they will start with the Sun and Moon series over in China. So in terms of the competitive, that's why I'm saying it may be a little bit, because that's expanded now at this point. And even the first block of Sword and Shield will probably be expanded by the time it comes out in mainland China. But anyways.
Now, what's interesting about this is something I don't know what the answer is, but Hong Kong and Taiwan, what it says here is that it took them about a year to catch up with their set releases. But once they did, they had sets that exactly matched Japan. Which means if they keep with the same thing, then eventually mainland China will get set releases that are the exact Japanese sets and not the Western sets. So not our like sort of combo sets. I wonder if China then will be placed for competitive play in a region with Japan, right? Like if they expand their tournament,
I guess with like the tournament or the structure and like qualifying for the World Championships, so they have, they have a different system than we do. Like you have to win certain types of tournaments, or place within the top 4 or something like that of another type of tournament to like be able to qualify for Worlds. It's much different than what we have, our point system that we talked about in a previous week and in previous episodes. So truthfully, I'm not super familiar with it.
This is us. Like I'm speculating as to what it might be, but I think my gut would tell me that they'll have a system that's similar to Japan. I know Singapore, I think, moved to that kind of system as well. Our friend Cashman did lament a little bit about that change because it does make it more difficult to qualify because you have to do really, really well in like one tournament or whatever. So my gut tells me they'll probably do the same thing for China when that comes around, whenever that might be.
I'm interested to see, like, especially in the first couple years, what the player base looks like. Because China is huge in terms of mainland China. So like getting so many people extra into playing the game is great for the game. It's great for the company as well. And I mean, it's always cool to see the cards coming into a cool new region, Sean.
Yeah. And maybe they can get Tencent or some some company that knows how to make video games to make a better online client.
Maybe they'll,
I don't know.
maybe Tencent will take over PTCGL. I know some people may not be happy with that or whatever, but
all I know is that it needs some help. Anyways.
Let's talk about some happier things on top of the Pokemon being introduced to China. Sean, if you want Eevees and you want Evolutions and you want Eevee Evolution cards, Sean, GameStop has the product for you coming soon. Sean, the Eevee Evolutions Premium Collection Box from GameStop was recently revealed. It is going to feature 9 reprints, the Sword and Shield EVV promo, and all 8 evolutions from Evolving Skies, along with 9 booster packs. Sean, I see in those booster packs there's some Lost Origin in there, some Brilliant Stars. So those are usually in the pictures, especially when things are first revealed. Those are like placeholder packs. You know, it may change a little bit of variety. I would honestly be kind of surprised if one of your 9 packs was not Evolving Skies.
That would be, that would be weird, but I
wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind, to be honest. But like, I don't know, like
it feels
8
weird.
of those 9 promos are from Evolutions.
Yeah, that would feel weird if it wasn't. But I don't know. Yeah, it could also be like we're living in the V-Star era, so no Evolving Skies. I don't know. It's strange.
I mean, whatever. But anyways, this will be exclusive to GameStop stores. So if you want this product, go to your GameStop stores November 11th. It is going to be $70, Sean, which, I mean, honestly, it's not terrible. I mean, getting 9 booster packs from this image looking all pretty recent. I know that the boxes and stuff lately that I've been seeing, there's a lot of new stuff in them, not necessarily like Sword and Shield base set or like Cosmic Eclipse, like older. I mean, Cosmic Eclipse is a great set that I would love to continue opening, but you know, you're not seeing older sets and stuff. You're seeing a lot more new and relevant packs, I feel like, in boxes lately that release.
Yeah, I mean, look, my opinion, $70 for this. Like, I get it. If you're getting 9 packs and they MSRP typically for like what, $4 or $5. So even if it's like $5, let's give it the benefit of the doubt there. That's like $45 worth of cards, so it's really a $25 difference for all the promos. I don't know.
For 9 promos.
Yeah, there are 9 promos, but like, are the promos a different art? No.
Yes.
Are they?
Yes. No.
I don't think so.
I think some of them are and some of them aren't. Like Jolteon, Vaporeon, and Flareon have always been a promo.
Oh, have they? Okay. So yeah, this is a weird one. I'm trying to read the article to see if they're saying like if they're like unique arts, but I don't think.
Yes. Well, those aren't like, I don't think those are unique arts, but like Glaceon V, for example, that Glaceon V is different than the Glaceon V that you would get in the set.
Yeah.
Like, I believe all of these have been promos in other boxes. They're just combining all those boxes together, if that makes sense.
I mean, for me, I'm like, great concept. This is from a concept perspective, like people love Eevee, like you said, fan favorite. People collect Eevees. I'm gonna say at $70 is steep. That's my opinion, but it
is slightly steep.
Especially because, like, you know, you've seen some of the products they've come out with lately that have alternate art versions of cards, or like I think giving us, even if it was just one unique version of one of these, right? Like, say it was an alternate art version of Eevee or a gold and black version of Eevee.
Oh yeah, that would have been such a good idea. You know, you don't have to do it for all the evolutions, but for the Eevee, like,
yeah,
because there is that Sword and Shield Eevee Vmax that you got in one of the ETBs, Shining Fates.
Yeah. The promo that you got in that.
Yeah.
And I think something like that, because all of these Eeveelutions are going to be probably extremely cheap on the secondary market. And I know
Oh yeah.
singles it's always cheaper to buy singles. So that's not a great argument, but the fact that like I can go buy 9 packs, I can go buy all of these Eevees. Like if say I'm a parent and I'm like, I want to get my kid all these things, but I also want to save probably $20 to be honest. Like that's where the $70 price point, if this was a $49.99 pack, you know, or even like $60 maybe, but like once you get past that, I don't see the value there. So excellent product. I think if you're just getting this as a gift or you know, it's awesome, right? If the money doesn't matter, great. But if I'm buying it, I'm not buying it unless I just am like,
Sean,
yeah.
You could buy this and invest in it, and you can hold it for 18 years, and then all of a sudden you're paying your college tuition, just like the Burger King gold cards that they gave out in those Happy Meals.
I mean, yeah, that honestly, I think this is one of those weird products that I think in like 8 or 9 years might actually be worth a pretty penny because it is an Eevee centric product. And like, there's never going to be more Eevees and Evolutions in one product on the cover than this. So like, okay, cool.
Just imagine what collectors would have said, complained, all that stuff if like this box was like all of the alternate arts of the Evolutions.
I
imagine the craze and the uproar that would be happening if that box was like that. What a missed opportunity.
I mean, you know what? This is one of those things that like I see what Japanese do with their products. You know, sometimes the Japanese have like sort of like bonus packs on the inside that will have a selection.
Are you talking about like in a booster box?
They used to have them, I think, in there's been a couple of products where they'll have a pack and it'll have a smaller selection of cards, like maybe 10 different cards you can pull, right?
Well, yeah, that's like the 25th anniversary set.
Yes. I think what Pokemon could have done with some products like this is like you get the normal set, but then you get one of those specialty packs and you can pull any one of the alternate arts from that, and you don't know, right?
What if alternate arts only came through like those packs?
I mean, then they wouldn't sell the rest of the boxes, right? Like, but yeah, I've said it before. I think what Magic does with collector boxes, like from a pack opening perspective, I wish Pokemon would do it, but they don't need to. Their product sells just fine, so
yeah, they small indie company is Pokemon, Sean, but. If this box doesn't suit you, maybe this next one will. This is releasing exclusively at Target on November 4th, the VMax Dragons Premium Collection. Sean, this big hunk of a box, it looks like a really like thick box.
It's a chunky boy.
In the picture for some odd reason. It comes with 2 etched foil cards featuring Rayquaza VMax and Duraludon VMax. 2 foil cards featuring Rayquaza V and Duraludon V. 2 oversized foil cards featuring Rayquaza VMax and Duraludon VMax. 11 Pokemon TCG booster packs and a code card.
I mean,
so Sean, this box, 4 Rayquaza, 4 Duraludon, 2 Dragon Pokemon that came back in Evolving Skies, and yeah, we're still in another box of Evolving Skies releasing. Sean, how do you feel about this one?
I mean, this is a lot of packs too. It's 11 packs versus the 9 we just saw with the Eevee pack.
You get 11 packs. You get 4 regular promos, 2 oversized foil promos.
Yeah, I mean, I like this one, like because. Weirdly enough, the Duraludon VMax is the more playable of these, and I think it probably still has some place in the format. It's a little weird, and we'll get into some of the meta after this, but like,
yes, we will.
But you know, it's somewhat playable. Maybe Rayquaza can be playable again, but like both of these, especially Rayquaza, fan favorite, right? I think I'd have to see how much this is because there's no pricing information yet.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. What do you think it's gonna be?
I bet it's gonna be $69.99.
Do you think it's gonna be $69.99?
Yep, I think it'll be the same price as the Eevee collection because I'm like, 11 packs is it's only 2 more, but you get technically, if they said this, that you get 5 less promo cards. So you're trading
Yeah, but
5
you get
promos
jumbo
for 2
cards.
packs. You do
Like
get jumbos.
You
but
do technically you get only 3 less promos.
do you think this is like an $80 thing, Jake?
I don't. I mean, that box is a chonker.
It is a
Looking
chonker.
at that, and it's got 11 packs. It's got more packs. It's got VMax cards right inside of it. I think this is like an 85 to 90.
Interesting. It might be. Yeah, like
Inflation, Sean.
I mean,
You have to think of what you think it would be, and then add money on top of that for inflation.
I guess maybe the question, Jake, is how much would you pay for this? Not how much do we think it's going to cost. How much would you pay?
Let's see. 11 packs is $44, essentially 44 to 55. I would pay 60.
Okay, so what we're
But
saying
I'm cheap.
is
I don't really like. It's very not often that I buy a box for its promos.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is another thing where, like, if you're getting this as, a gift for Christmas, it's cool. Like,
Awesome gift.
That's when all these are coming out. It's all around the holiday season. So in terms of like gifts, this is a winner, I think, because like, especially if you're buying a gift for your friend or child or whatever, and they're a player. If I'm comparing this to the Eevee set, right? If the person you're bidding it for plays the game, get this product. That's my recommendation.
Yes. Get this one.
Yeah.
It's got Duraludon, the big skyscraper guy.
Yeah, and dragons are cool, man. Dragons are cool.
Dragons are cool, man. Put that on a t-shirt and quote it of Sean 2022. Anyway, Sean, we got to talk about this event that happened in 2022, the Limitless Showdown in September. This was over this past weekend, and it was the what?
I was gonna say, before we get into that, I want to talk about
Before we get into the largest online event in the Lost Origin meta. I'm sorry, Sean.
Yeah.
Sean has a big thing.
I mean, it's not that big, but like
It is huge.
I did play in a local.
That's huge.
Which is huge, right? I haven't played in so long. I ordered some cards. I told you, I think I mentioned on a pod, like I was ordering some Reshiram and some Lost Zone stuff.
Yes.
Built the deck, and I got Reshiram, but I'm playing Reshiram with Radiant Charizard over Greninja, which I know a lot of people are like, well, which one do you play? But I went 3-0. I won the tournament. For what it's worth,
Sean's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. First time going to a locals in like 2 years.
Yeah.
He just wins the whole thing.
It's fine.
Just goes undefeated, wins the whole thing. All right, Sean. Okay. What's worse? You downplaying your undefeated victory, or me waiting to drop that it was my birthday last week until like the last 3 seconds?
I mean,
which one's worse?
The birthday one at the last second, because like you
I don't
waited.
know about that. I don't know about that, Sean. We should be popping champagne for your victory right now.
I mean, it was a small locals, but you know what? A win is a win, and I respect my opponent. So 3-0, I will take.
Exactly. So. No rust on your hinges. But, Sean, now we should talk about the Limitless Showdown September. This was the biggest online event in the Lost Origin meta right now. I believe there was like 650 some players.
Oh my gosh.
I think I saw the tweet.
654.
654 players. So a lot of players and a long time. But Sean, let's first look at the metagame. What were people playing in this tournament? And in the Lost Origin meta, over 30% of the meta share. So out of all the people that played, over 30% of them played some sort of Lost Zone deck, whether that was the Lost Zone box deck with all the single prizes that we talked about in a previous week, or Giratina V-Stars. And you can even potentially clump Kyurem in there. Another almost 11% of the meta was Kyurem Palkia. So that is also a Lost Origin card, even though it's not like Lost Origin or Lost Zone stuff. There was a lot of Lost Origin stuff. And again, Lost Zone box, the top deck, almost 20% of the meta. Giratina, 13 or 12.5%, we'll say. Kyurem Palkia, almost 11%. Palkia Inteleon, a little under 10%. And then Mew Genesect was the 5th most popular deck at 7.19%, Sean.
Yeah, I'm like looking through. So I'm looking through the Lost Zone box decks, right? Because they were heavily like almost 20% of the meta was Lost box, but they had a less than 50% win percentage, and I was just wondering, like, what seems to have a very good matchup against Lost box? And do you know what I just found, Jake?
You saw Durant at the top.
Well,
that's what I saw.
No, Durant means that Lost box beats Durant.
Oh, never mind.
Yes.
Oh, dang.
But you know what deck has a 100% win rate against Lost box? Well, nearly 100%. Just regular Kyurem, no Palkia, has a 100% win rate against Lost box. And then Kyurem Palkia has a 61% win rate. So what that says is that the second most or the third most played deck has a positive win rate against the most played deck in this format. So I think that's a really interesting, takeaway there. So anyways, I'll go back to the overall metagame share.
And in this as well, we'll talk about the standings now. Mew Genesect won the whole thing. It was the 5th most popular deck, but Mew Genesect ended up getting the win. And I kind of want to...
Do you want to look at the list?
Just look at it very briefly. Just very, very briefly, because there's some things happening in here. And in other stuff, I've been told on Twitter that Mew Vmax is doing. Mew Vmax is now playing Switch Cart, Sean.
Interesting.
Switch Cart, which if you do not know is an item card. Switch your active basic Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. If you heal 30 damage from the Pokemon, you move to your bench. So with the Lost Origin, if you do not remember, that is the Sableye that if you have 10 or more cards, I think, in the Lost Zone, you put 12 damage counters any way you'd like on your opponent's side of the field. If their goal is to get a Genesect or something trapped into the active, your Oricorio trapped into the active, you can use a Switch Cart to switch the Pokemon out and heal a little bit of the damage. And who knows, maybe the math works out well enough because they're usually spreading damage. So maybe the first time they put 12 damage counters, they don't put all of them on the Genesect. They put like 7 of them. Maybe. So then Genesect would have 120 left, right? You feel me?
Yeah.
Or enough to make Genesect have 110 left for the Cramorant to attack and just KO it in the active. So Switch Card allows you not only to switch out that Pokemon, but play around that math a little bit as well. And maybe the same is for the Mew, even though Mew has free retreat, healing. And I've been told as well that Mew VMax decks, although we're not going over and showing you a list that has this, I've been told on Twitter recently that Mew VMax is playing Cheryl now in a lot of lists.
I mean, that's really interesting because, Cheryl, if you don't need to attack that often and you think you can get your double turbo back with Silene, right? Like that's got to be the main goal, because that is a fear. Like, I'm looking at this list. You only have 4 double turbos, and that's it for energy. So if you did run out of your double turbos midway through a game, especially knowing that there's so many of these Lost Box decks running around, that's a grind in terms of the number of attacks you have to do. So I think Silene has to hit heads there for you to actually stay in the game. But it's interesting.
It's a pretty interesting list. Again, that Lost City being over there. Sean, we talked about Lost City. Paths of the Peak is a little bit interesting, I feel like, in the Mew VMax, but I think that's mostly to stop Kyurem Palkia.
Yeah, that's
Kyurem
what I was
Palkia,
gonna say.
Palkia not only having its V-Star ability, which actually we'll go over the list right now, Sean, because Kyurem Palkia was the second place list. So what a transition to talk about the exact deck that you're stopping. Boom. Metapod podcast always having perfect transitions on this podcast. So Kyurem Vmax, Sean, if you do not remember Kyurem Vmax, it is a 330 HP water Vmax Pokemon with the ability Glaciated World. Once during your turn, you may discard the top card of your deck. If that card is a water energy card, attach it to one of your Pokemon. This says specifically, Sean, this is big to note, water energy card. It is not basic water energy. So if you have a special energy that is water, which there is one in this list, we'll mention it here shortly, that one attaches as well. It activates with that ability, and its attack for 3 water energies, max frost, 120 base damage. You may discard any amount of water energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 50 more damage for each card you discarded in this way. So, Sean, if you have multiple Kyurems set up, multiple Kyurem Vmaxes, right, attaching those energies, you've got Palkia as well in this Palkia list. Palkia V-Star having Star Portal, the V-Star power ability that accelerates up to 3 energies from the discard to your Pokemon. Is it your water Pokemon? Yeah, your water Pokemon in any way you'd like, as well as, Sean.
Yeah.
Empoleon V. Empoleon V is making its way into a lot of decks lately, and people are trying to counter this. I've seen like
canceling Cologne.
Yeah, canceling Cologne. I've seen like Galarian Weezings, like apparently are populating the online ladder. Empoleon V, it has that ability, Emperor's Eyes. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent's basic Pokemon in play have no abilities except for Pokemon with a rule box. So Inteleons, right, don't activate. Regideck, absolutely dead. But its attack,
the Inteleons do work because it's not a basic Pokemon.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, but you're right. Like
Comfy.
I'm sorry.
Like the Lost Zone Comfy.
Yes,
though.
the Lost Zone Comfy. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that correction, Sean. The Empoleon also has that ability though to get the energies on the Kyurem with its attack for 1 water and 2 colorless energies. Swirling Slice for 130 damage. Move an energy from this Pokemon to one of your benched Pokemon. So you can get a ton of energies, Sean, along with the Melanies that are in this deck. You can just get a ton on your Kyurem or wherever you want, especially because Orangaroo, I think we've mentioned this in the set list review in a previous week too. Orangaroo, the Sword and Shield Orangaroo, the one with Primal Wisdom, putting a card from your hand on the top of your deck and switching the top of your deck into your hand.
Yeah.
That card pairs well with Kyurem Vmax. That is just statement of fact.
Yep. Yeah. So I like this deck, man. This is cool. I think when we did our set review, we did talk about how Kyurem was like a better Lapras. And I think both of us were like, this could be an interesting, like a good card. And it was definitely I think, sleeper from the set. Like everybody was obviously really hyped about Giratina. And then I think people realized very quickly how good Lost Box was going to be with like Cramorant and Sableye, but this Kyurem Vmax I think was a little under the radar in terms of like, oh, it's a 3-prizer and we're past 3-prizers and we're past, but like to the points that you made going through this list, like there's so much synergy between Palkia. You get to use another card in Empoleon that directly shuts off some of the benefits of these other decks. So really powerful stuff. And the one thing I will also point out, just one random thing, is the inclusion of 2 cards, actually. Lost Vacuum. So Lost Vacuum, for those of you who don't know, you can only use this card if you put another card from your hand in the Lost Zone, so you have to ditch a card basically forever. But
it's just 1 card.
Yeah. But then you can choose a Pokemon tool or a stadium and put it into the Lost Zone. Obviously, the benefit here is that it's like a more versatile tool scrapper, you know? And this reminds me a bit of, what was it? Faba, right? There was a card a few years ago called Faba, which let you do basically the same thing, except it was a supporter for the turn.
It was a supporter, and you didn't have to discard or put something from your hand in the Lost Zone.
Yes, but like being able to get rid of one of these tools forever,
Stadium,
right? And then you don't have to use your supporter for turn. So I will, one minor thing, you don't have to go buy a bunch of these, but if you're running a deck that doesn't care about the Lost Zone, definitely consider Lost Vacuum over something like a Tool Scrapper moving forward, because it's really versatile. So
It has that versatility, especially when you're playing a deck that has battle VIP passes.
yes.
Cards like that, Hisuian Heavy Ball as well. If you just know that it's past turn 1 or you don't have any basic Pokemon in the prizes, those cards are literally useless. So sometimes they're better off just using the Lost Vacuum on them. And that's 5 cards total in your deck that are essentially dead cards at a certain point. So it's a pretty solid chunk of your deck.
And then the other card Jake mentioned that, like, okay, you can accelerate water energy, and it can be special energy, and this is the special energy this deck is running, which is Wash Water Energy. Came out a bit ago, a long time ago, I want to say, but
came out in Vivid Voltage.
Yeah, so old card for this format, relatively. But what it does is prevent all effects of attacks from your opponent's Pokemon done to the water Pokemon this card is attached to. So,
you know what that stops, Sean?
I'll let you say what it stops.
I'm pretty sure 95, 97, 99 with you shaking your head percent sure that this stops the Sableye, the Lost Zone Sableye, because Sableye is putting damage counters on the field. It's not like it's putting out 120 damage. It's putting 12 damage counters, which is an effect of an attack. So that's why this Wash Energy is so good, because it prevents that effect of an attack.
Yep, that's exactly right. So, yeah, it's a good, energy. You can throw it anywhere that you think could be a problem. But particularly, it might actually be good if you have your Greninja, Radiant Greninja down. Because it also, like, Radiant Greninja, I want to say, is 120 HP? 130. So, or, I guess it doesn't work on a Oranguru, because a Oranguru is not a water Pokemon. But you could throw it on the Greninja to protect it, or if you're worried about the math of, like, 12 damage counters, could just throw it on any one of your other dudes. But, yeah, interesting first list here of Kyurem.
It's very cool to see and very cool to look at, especially because I wasn't super hyped about Kyurem, but it's out there. But Sean, what's the next deck you want to look at? There's some cool ones in here. I see your favorite over there at 4th place.
Yeah, I do want to look at Dialga, because this is one that Jake and I was so wrong for my world's prediction with Dialga. So very wrong. But
and this is a cool Dialga list, Sean.
Yeah, so I think this Dialga list shows how powerful basically lost engines, I'm going to call them, Lost Zone engines, can be for any deck. And that is because Dialga, if you don't remember, Dialga's got a good attack, but its attack requires a lot of energy. Its V-Star power does 220 damage and you take an extra turn, but it requires you to have 5 energy. But the good thing is, one of those energy can be whatever. So the question becomes, well, if I can do a different kind of energy, maybe I will play a water energy and make it a Lost Zone deck and use Mirage Gate. So Mirage Gate is a new Lost Zone card, and you can only use the card if you have 7 or more cards in the Lost Zone. So you do need to play things like Comfy or Colress Experiment to get cards into the Lost Zone. But you search your deck for 2 basic energy cards of different types and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. So you can get a metal and a water, put it on that Dialga. It's a double energy acceleration from the deck, which is wild. You don't even have to have them in hand. Yeah, I expect this engine is going to be very popular among a lot of decks in the next few sets.
Especially because you have metal Pokemon as well. Metal Saucers are in this deck, right? So you can get a lot of energies onto your Dialga at one turn, really. You're playing a couple Cramorants to help set up damage, especially for that Star Chronos. Like you were mentioning earlier, you've got Radiant Greninja for the Midnight Shuriken, right? Placing damage in places. One card that I really like in here in this Dialga Lost Zone deck, Thornton. Sean, I don't think we've talked about Thornton yet in a deck. This is a supporter Pokemon that came out in Lost Origin. Choose a basic Pokemon in your discard pile and switch it with one of your basic Pokemon in play. Any attached cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, any other effects remain on the new Pokemon. So it is basically a Ninja Boy reprint. Sean, if you remember Ninja Boy from way back in the day. And so this can give you a little bit of versatility. You know, you got your Lumineon in the active, right? And you're like, oh no, that's a 2-prize Pokemon right there. Oh, why don't I just Thornton and change it into a Comfey, right? And then be able to use Comfey's ability.
Yeah, or like it, you know, you could Thornton your Lumineon or your Crobat, turn it into a Dialga V, and then Evo into V-Star.
Yep.
Right away. And you could even attach an energy to one of those, right? For the turn. And then, you know, they may not suspect what's going to be coming up next turn.
The Thornton allows you a little bit of versatility when you find it. So it's a really, really cool inclusion. I wonder, especially with, you know, Lost Zone box, the Sableye Cramorant build, if with the huge rise in popularity of that being the #1 prominent deck from this format at least, I wonder if Thornton starts seeing a little bit more play as one of in a lot of decks to add to that versatility. You know, you start off with, I mean, if you switch Thornton into a Pokemon that is a little bit weaker, right? You know, you have your 2-prize Lumineon, but maybe you want to switch it into your Radiant Greninja or something like that. You know, Radiant Greninja has 120 less HP, but if you, for instance, in like a Palkia deck, right? If in the Palkia deck, the Sableye is looking like it would KO it if it has that less than 170, you could just switch it real quick on the turn that you're ready to Moonlight Shuriken or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like it. It's a really interesting card. It's I think as a one of, it makes actually like that's the number, right? Like because you're probably not gonna take a turn off to play this more than once. Yeah, I like that play. The one card that I think we saw in Worlds that I'm not seeing in this list, and it might be a space issue, but I'd be interested to see somebody also play around with the Banette combo. So like even if it's a 1/1 line. So for those of you who don't know, Banette, when you evolve it, you can have your opponent basically devolve one of their benched Pokemon. Now, the benefit of that is if you've done a little bit of setup damage with a Dialga and then you escape rope or something, you can Banette, take a couple of prizes, and then attack, take some more prizes, right? Basically set yourself up for some extra prize turns out of nowhere. I don't know where that fits in the list. I haven't played this list, so who knows. But
I think, honestly, you're sacrificing that Banette build for the Lost Origin build.
Yeah.
Or the Lost Zone build with the Comfeys, the Colress, the Mirage Gate. I think that's kind of what you sacrifice, because I feel like with Banette, if you play and depend on using Banette, you need to have something like cross switchers in the deck, because your opponent's Pokemon has to be on the bench, right? So you need to be able to get that Pokemon on the bench if it's in the active, or, you know, after you devolve it right on the bench, you need to bring it up into the active so you can Star Chronos on it, because Star Chronos knocks out every single Pokemon V without the presence of like Big Charm and stuff. But still, I think that's kind of the reasoning behind that. I do like the Banette, though. I think the Banette's really cool. And I believe Xander Pero was the one who played that build at Worlds.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, I think this
is...
Or
Baltimore.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Oh, it might have been Baltimore. You might be right. Yeah.
It could have been. Either way, Xander Pero.
The one other thing I want to point out about this, somebody mentioned this on Twitter. I can't remember exactly who, but I think it's interesting to point out how Colress Experiment, right? We think about this card as only being for Lost Zone engines, which it's like, don't get me wrong, it's really good. Getting 2 cards in the Lost Zone is like, it makes a difference. But if you actually look at this card and think of it from a pure draw perspective, this is a supporter that's just draw 5. And now
Yeah.
you can only keep 3 of them. But in most decks, you don't necessarily need more than that. You know, like you might be trying to, you also might want to get your hand thinned down to also play other cards or like Bibarel or whatever it might be. A raw draw 5 basically is crazy powerful.
It's just really good.
Yeah, like we think about like a card that you know, Professor's Research is a draw 7, but you have to discard your hand in order to do it. So you typically lose some resource there. But the ability to be like, I have my hand, and I can see 5 more cards and pick the 3 that I want and keep those, and then whatever with the rest, get rid of them forever. But I'm interested to see, as the person on Twitter pointed out, how many decks start running Colress Experiment, even if they're not a Lost Zone deck.
I think if you run Colress Experiment, I think you slowly turn into a Lost Zone deck, right?
You
Because
might
it makes sense if you're using Colress Experiment
to play Mirage Gate.
to attach on Mirage Gate. It's I mean, you use one Colress Experiment and you're halfway to using Cramorant's attack for free.
Yeah.
Right? Utilizing the Comfey, you know, it seems to me that if you're using Colress Experiment, you might as well just become a Lost Zone engine, because that just makes sense. Right? It is a good engine. It is fast, right? It is powerful, packs a punch, and it's versatile, you know, especially with Mirage Gate coming out as well. You know, having the 2 energies to have multiple different options, because we can look at another list, Sean, that also uses and has added the Lost Zone engine, the Goodra deck that placed 7th, I believe, the first Goodra deck. This Goodra VMax deck also utilizing the Comfey, Colress, Mirage Gate, Lost Zone engine, but it's a little bit different than Dialga, because if you do not know Goodra VStar, Sean, because it wasn't the most super popular card, because there have been a lot of great cards come out of Lost Origin. Goodra VStar, Hisuian Goodra VStar, 270 HP dragon type Pokemon, has 2 big points to it. One, the V-Star power we'll go over first, is an ability. This ability says during your turn, you may heal all damage from this Pokemon. So if you've got 260 damage counters on you, boom, you can just heal that right off like it's nothing. It's not like a Cheryl where you have to discard your energy or anything like that, or a Hyper Potion. This is just heal it all off, you know, exactly how you were before. The attack, though, is what makes this also really interesting. Rolling Iron for 200 damage. This is a water, metal, colorless cost, so 3 energies. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 80 less damage from attacks. 80. That's a lot. Now, that is damage from attacks, so like for something like Sableye, it doesn't really work like that, because Sableye is placing damage counters. That's different than
that's true.
Giving damage from an attack. But especially in a lot of decks that run Cramorants, right? We're seeing a lot of, I think almost every list we featured so far in this podcast has been using the Lost Zone Cramorant. That's 110 damage. So with the 80, that's only 30 damage, right?
Yep.
And so you're seeing a lot of damage being negated and healed off with that Hisuian Goodra V, and with Pokemon and prizes that are worth 2, right, that are hitting the field left and right. It's like 4-turn game, right? 3 knockout game. And so even if you're only healing once from the V-Star, the Moisture Star, because there are no other healing cards in this deck, right? Your V-Star power is the only healing card in this at least iteration of the deck. Who knows? Maybe in the future we'll see more. But that's all it takes, because the games are that quick, Sean, that you can just use your Moisture Star, right, to heal off, basically negate a turn, from your opponent, and then rolling iron prevents enough damage for you to be able to win the game, because 200 damage is a little bit weird when you talk about like Vs and stuff, because that doesn't knock out every single V, but with a choice belt,
It does.
that goes in and knocks out every single V then at that point.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because you think like the first 2 prizes you take, if the first thing you knock out is a Goodra VStar, you hit it for a ton of damage. Okay, cool, but it's not enough to knock it out. They use their ability, heal everything up, bop you for 200. Okay, you hit it again. Let's get started. Let's try this again. It's still not dead. Okay, they swing back at you and hit you.
They might like boss up your Lumineon or something.
They might boss
knock it out.
They might even switch into Cramorant to finish you off, take their 2 prizes. Now you got to find a boss, and then so by the time you've taken,
or if we're even talking about Kyurem, right? Kyurem VStar, that's 3 prizes.
Yep. So by the time that they have taken their first 2 prizes, you might have taken 2 or 4 prizes or more, right? Depending on like who attacked first. So yeah, like just being able to force your opponent to take 2 attacks to knock you out and negating an entire turn, to your point. Yeah, it's if you really think about it, it's a pretty wild swing.
It's a pretty cool list. I know some people like Azul were really excited. Who was it? Gosh, somebody on Twitter said that they did really well with this in a tournament, and I'm forgetting who it was. Patrick Wall did really well with this in a tournament recently, like a win-a-box tournament. So very, very cool to see Goodra VStar coming out and doing some heavy lifting. Also, there's an Arceus VStar variant as well of the Goodra VStar deck that placed just right under it, top 10 in the tournament. So, I mean, pretty much the list has a little bit more in terms of you've got the Arceus VStar, you've got Radiant Gardevoir that has the ability all your Pokemon take 20 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon V, so preventing a little bit of damage. This Arceus variant having the Crystal Cave, the Big Charm, Hyper Potion. So like I mentioned earlier, you know, maybe we'll see a variant that has a little bit more of the healing aspect. This is the variant that has a little bit more of the healing aspect, which is also a really cool list. And Sean, you brought up the Big Parasol.
Yeah.
So if anyone doesn't know, Big Parasol, that item card, that tool card, as long as this card is attached to the Pokemon in the active spot, prevent all effects of your attacks from your opponent's Pokemon done to all of your Pokemon. So essentially, if you remember from like Decidueye and stuff, this prevents the placements of damage counters that Sableye does if this Big Parasol is in the active. So pretty easy way to just stop them.
I think it'll be interesting to see which version of Goodra wins out. I do, as much as I like Radiant Gardevoir, I don't think that the 20 damage matters because it's only from Pokemon V, right? So it's not like you could...
Oh, yeah, it does. It is only Pokemon V. Never mind.
So I don't know the math there, if it really matters. So for me, I think that the Greninja, because the Greninja offers such a threat in the late game,
because you're using you're using water energy from the Goodra.
Exactly. You get draw, and then you've got an actual attacking threat that can take out 2 Compies, right, on the bench that are just like, yeah, this is 2 prizes, and I'm swinging with a 1 prizer to do it. So it's definitely like, I think the Radiant Greninja is probably the way to go. But yeah, I don't.
I would say I understand your thinking, but I think the reason that maybe Radiant Greninja is not used in here is because Radiant Greninja has water colorless as an attack. So if it was like water colorless, then yes, I think we would see Radiant Greninja because that's a little bit easier to power up. I mean, you do have Arceus VStar, but I think ideally you're only using Arceus VStar in the beginning of the game. Like you have 4 Arceus Vs, so then you more than likely start Arceus V in the active, similar to how Duraludon Arceus is built. And then, you know, from then on, you're just going into your Goodra. So I can understand it, but I think maybe the math, I mean, I don't know the math. I haven't tested it, but I think Radiant Gardevoir does just enough for like Kyurem math, for Palkia math. things like that, to be able to just prevent enough to make it worth it.
That's fair. Yeah, it might be the difference maker. So I will say, if you're playing the RCS list and you're doing like like high heal, all that stuff, throw in one Sharon's Care, just one, just because Sharon's Care is a broken card in RCS lists. Because you might have a game where like I'll get the RCS running, I'll power something up, but I don't want it sitting on the bench being a 2-prize knockout that I can't do anything. No, just let me just grab that and put that back in my hand.
Let me get a piece of that,
right.
please.
So, just my personal opinion there. Just consider Sharon's Care.
Sean, is there any other deck that you want to go over and talk about before we end this one up?
No, I think that's probably good. Yeah, the only other deck is the Lost Box stuff. So if you wanted just a quick peek at that, I think there's a couple of variations, but
some of them now playing Charizard, as you may see on your screen.
Exactly, because you think about it, Cramorant doesn't need energy, so you don't need to play water. So since you don't need to play water, you could either play Greninja, which can help your math with like taking a couple of prizes out of nowhere against other Lost Box decks, or you can play the Radiant Charizard, which I found Radiant Charizard in my matches to be really powerful.
Yes, I mean, it packs a punch. What is that, 250 damage it does?
Yeah, 250 base. You can throw those the choice belts in there if you really want to do 280. You've got Zigzagoon. Zigzagoon I also found was really good. My third match was against a Shadow Rider Calyrex deck, and I was able to take all 6 prizes just off the extra damage from Zigzagoon pings. And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's all.
We did talk about the other week in the Baltimore regional results, when Piper won with the Charizard Inteleon deck, right? So, I mean, Charizard, very, very good card. And so look out if you're facing off against a Lost Origin list, because they could be playing that. Because I like the versatility it adds.
Yeah.
Because, Sableye is good at placing those damage counters and being a little bit more methodical with how it's taking knockouts, where now, like we saw earlier, right, we're seeing some decks add like big parasols, right?
Empoleon.
Adding that wash energy in there. And so in order to counter the counter, as they say, Charizard, Braveheart, Radiant Charizard, just come in and swing, knock out a bunch of different stuff.
So, Jake, before we go, what do you think is the top dog going into Peoria this weekend?
Oh, God. I didn't expect this.
Yep.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What do I think is the top dog in terms of what will be the most successful deck, or what do I think will win?
I will let you pick the answer to that one, which one you want to answer, and I'll do the opposite. I'll do the other one.
Okay. I think I really want Goodra to win.
Oh, okay. So you're going to pick Goodra.
I want Goodra to win real bad. Because Goodra is cool. Goodra was super underrated, right? It was shadowed by Giratina, which, by the way, Giratina is obsolete from the results. I mean, it was 15th overall, but that was its highest placing, and it's not very often. I think there's like 3 in the top 40 from the Limitless Showdown in September. So shadowed by Giratina, shadowed by Kyurem, shadowed by even Hisuian Zoroark. People were so excited for that deck, and there was one that placed well, but I think it's pretty much the same list. So I really want Goodra to win. Goodra is the ugly stepchild that deserves a lot of love.
Okay. So it's interesting. I just looked at the Goodra list. This is the power of Limitless, by the way. Shout out to Limitless. They're amazing. Yeah. The Goodra matchup with Kyurem is not great, at least for this tournament. It was a 23% win rate against Kyurem. And the reason is, I think it's because Kyurem doesn't have a cap on its damage. So they can like take a couple of turns, really get something big, and then just power through.
you're rolling iron, right? Even though Kyurem is weak to metal type Pokemon, you are not a metal type Pokemon, even though you're using metal type energies. So you have to attack twice to knock it out, which is another turn for them to power up.
So I don't know. Maybe, if Kyurem becomes really popular, I wonder if Goodra list will actually put in like a 1 Zacian or like maybe 1 Zamazenta.
You could. Zamazenta actually is not the worst thing in the world.
It's
right?
really
you're playing,
not.
Well, you're not playing Metal Saucers.
No.
I wonder if you put it into your like Arceus variants.
Right? You might, yeah. Like
you put the one of Zacian in your Arceus Goodra variant to be able to power it up, right?
Yeah.
It's not like if they gusted, they'd be able to kill it unless they're playing Path or something like that.
Yeah.
Which if they play Path, they're shutting off their
Kyurem
Kyurem,
ability.
they're shutting off their Palkia, they're shutting off their Radiant Greninja. So
I mean,
that's not a bad idea, Sean.
The reason I also like Zamazenta, because doesn't Zamazenta do what, 130 base? The one that stops VMAX from hitting through.
Yes.
And so if you put a choice belt on that, that's 160. And that's 320. So I think Kyurem is technically 330. So like,
yeah, Kyurem is 330 HP.
It's close. Like maybe you also want to throw in like a random, like, I don't know, Zigzagoon, like a one of, I don't know. That's probably a bad idea. But
yeah,
I do think that there might be something to one of Zamazenta. Just if you assume that Kyurem, like if Kyurem is really a bad matchup, I don't know. Did we just break
Maybe
Goodra?
Zacian is just your best option for it. Zacian, that freaking thing that just swings really, really hard, can also knock out a Palkia V, right?
That's
Origin
true.
form Palkia. So,
and you can get it powered up in one turn, either with like the Mirage Gate.
Intrepid Sword turn 1 is really good.
Now, is Zacian 3 metal or is it 2 metal and a colorless?
It's 3 metal.
That's why
That's a little tough. That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying like you have to put it in your Arceus build.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'll be interested to see where these lists go. For me, I think the most popular deck is going to be. If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have said Giratina. I actually think Giratina is not actually in a great spot right now. I think that Lost Box is going to be the most popular because it will be the most accessible from a cost.
Yeah.
And I think Lost Box is the kind of deck where it will reward a pilot over just like, because, you know, Kyurem, it's not to say that a pilot doesn't matter, but Kyurem, I think anyone can pick up a deck, and if it's built right, you can do relatively well, but like you're also going to give up a lot of prizes if you make mistakes. Whereas Lost Box, like, it, I think, is more forgiving on mistakes, but like if you're a really good pilot, you can outmaneuver your opponent because it's a single prizer. But all I'll say, going into Peoria, good luck to everybody. If you're playing with or against single prize decks, just maintain a good pace of play because you don't want to end up in a bunch of ties. That's
For you and your opponent, make sure you know that the game state is accurate. Make sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to, because it's actually on both players to maintain a good.
That's right.
A good game state, and also just be a good person this weekend. It's not that hard, in my opinion, to be a good, decent human being. And there's a lot of good people out there, so make some friends. But Sean, thank you so much for joining me on 115th episode of the MetaPod Podcast. Pokemon Podcast revolves around the evolving meta. I gotta get ready for work. You gotta go to a meeting. See you later.